Good morning and good afternoon, everybody. Happy May 17th to everyone. Thanks for joining us today for the May edition of our Talk to Our Expert series. Today, we're going to be talking about our integration between Merlin and the Adobe suite. As always, we're going to make this short and sweet. It will be less than 30 minutes. I am recording the session, and that will get posted on our website and YouTube page. Please ask your questions in the chat window, and I will try to remember to go there periodically to see if there are any questions. And the questions do not need to be related to today's topic, so please feel free to, if you have other questions that you'd like to ask of me or of the group, please post them in the chat window in the webinar window. So before I actually show you the integration, I just want to talk about it a little bit and tell you what we're trying to accomplish. So by using the Merlin Adobe plugin, you'll be able to search Merlin directly from within Photoshop and InDesign initially. We'll be adding other Adobe products later, but that's what we're going to release in our first pass. You'll be able to use your collections, your saved searches, and you'll even be able to do simple searches directly inside of the Adobe application. You'll also be able to view the most recently used collections, which is very convenient. You'll be able to open content directly inside of the Adobe application. And not only you will be able to open content, you'll be able to save it back to Merlin. You will also be able to version your content as well. Software, you'll be able to download the product that is directly from Adobe once you've purchased it, and automatic updates will be provided through the Adobe Creative Suite application. There are no per seat charges. There's a single annual fee for your organization, and this is based on your service level. If you want to add Adobe integration to your Merlin contract, just contact Randy Simpson, and there's her email address, rsimpson@merlinone.com. And so everybody can see I've launched Adobe Photoshop, and because the Merlin X plugin has been added to Photoshop, it's showing up here. I could easily place it elsewhere within the Adobe application because you can drag it and drop it once you've installed it. And I'm going to toggle this open, and it's going to take a minute or actually just a few seconds to go out and talk to Merlin and also to Adobe to make sure everything is valid and everything's ready to go. And then I'm going to be able to log in to Merlin. I'm going to be able to log into Merlin directly from within the this little window that opens up inside of Photoshop. So here's my login screen, and again, you can choose to point it to whatever server you'd like to point it to. I'm going to point it to a different server, and I'm going to log in with my username and password. And so it's actually connecting directly to the Merlin server, and it's showing me my most recent content in Merlin. Now, this window is very configurable. So for example, I can make the window larger and get more Merlin content on the screen. I can make the window smaller. I also, down in the lower right-hand corner, have the ability to change my thumbnails with just a simple slide. So if I want my thumbnails larger or smaller, I can do that directly from here. So this is a pretty nice thing to be able to do. I can also choose to display my thumbnail information below the picture, or I can turn that off. Maybe I'm interested in only seeing pictures and I'm not interested in seeing the other file information that we typically display. I'm going to make my thumbnails just a wee bit smaller. Okay, and so that's pretty easy to do. In the top menu bar, you have the ability to open a search window. So for example, if I wanted to search for something, I could search for orchid photos. And it's swooping through the entire Merlin database, and it found 62 items. You can see down here at the bottom what it's searching for and how many results it got. And I can scroll through this just like I would my Merlin browser, and I can scroll through and select what I would like to see. Okay, so that's one thing I can do is I can search. I can also take advantage of collections. So again, I've got private collections, shared collections, and I also have a view of recent collections. So those show up here as well. I also have the ability to take advantage of saved searches. So saved searches that you've created in the Merlin client show up here as well. So this is a very convenient thing to be able to do. So let's go back to my Orchid search, and let's say you'd like to work on a photo. So I'm going to just pick this photo, and notice that the photo is highlighted, and if I want to, I can select multiple photos, and now I've got 3 photos highlighted. So just a simple mouse click brings the photos to the forefront and lets you know they're selected. I'm going to deselect these 2. And from here, I have 2 choices. One, I can click this button and open the file directly inside of Photoshop. This would be the same as finding the picture in Merlin and choosing to download the photo from Merlin and then opening up the photo in Photoshop. So here's my photo in Photoshop. Okay. I also have the ability to version the item. And so my second option here within my plugin allows me to mark the photo as being checked out. Then it will also download the photo to Merlin, and then it will mark it as checked out for other users. And when I go to save it, it's going to save it back to Merlin as a new version. The way I've done this particular item, because I didn't do the checkout process, if I choose to bring this item back into Merlin, it will bring it back in as a new item, okay? And it's kind of cool what it does. So for example, I could do something with this photo. So for example, if we wanted to just turn it into a grayscale photo, so I'm going to do that. So now it's a black and white photo. And if I click the plus button, it's going to bring it back into Merlin. Now I've got some choices here as well. For example, if I click the plus button directly from here, it's going to bring it back into Merlin and just put it in with everything else as if it's a new item coming into Merlin. However, if I go to my collections and I have a collection selected, so for example, this Adobe demo collection, and I click my plus button now, when it adds the photo to Merlin, not only will it add it to a new asset, it will also add it directly into this collection. So I'm just going to click the plus button, and I get the ability to add a comment. So I'm just saying convert it to black and white, and I'm going to check it back in, and it's going to bring this photo back into Merlin, and it's going to appear in this collection. So that's a little bit about the Adobe plugin and Adobe Photoshop. I'm going to pause for a minute and see if there are any new questions, and there don't appear to be any, so that's good. Thank you. All right, and so that's how easy it is to actually access Merlin directly from inside of the Adobe application. In this case, it was Photoshop, and it should be finished uploading in a moment. So in the meantime, while it's finishing uploading, I'm going to switch to InDesign. So I've got this little InDesign document here, and notice my InDesign Merlin, excuse me, my InDesign Merlin plugin is here on the screen as well. We're looking at exactly the same items we were looking at in Merlin. And again, I can run a search or view collections. And so let's take a look at my Adobe demo collection that we've got set up with these 4 items in it. Oh, and here's the 5th. Oh, it versioned it. So notice it's version 2. Okay, so that's kind of a cool thing. So I've got version 2 on this one. And so now, because I'm in InDesign, I can do a couple of things. So let's say I wanted to place my logo on this InDesign page. Notice my icon here is a little bit different because this is to actually place content inside of an InDesign document. So if I click this, there are a couple of ways I can do this. One, I can draw a box. Okay, and so if I've got a box on the screen, if I'm using InDesign's tools to do that, it's going to put the picture in the box. But in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click this button, and it's going to load the picture into the InDesign buffer. And now I can, just using the InDesign tools, I can place this wherever I want. So I can place that logo right there. And if I want to, I can unselect that, and I'm going to click this photo, and I'm going to say I'd like to, actually, let's place my black and white photo. So we'll do this one. And again, it's going to add it here. And so I can place my InDesign. And again, now that it's on my InDesign page, I can size it. I can do whatever I want to do to my InDesign item. So I'm just going to place it and drag my box, and that way it fills my box. Okay. And if I don't have a box selected, if I have a box selected, I'm sorry, and do the exact same process and click this, what it's going to do is it's going to populate the box with the item I've got selected. So I can create a new box, or I can populate the box with the selected item. So that's a little bit about the InDesign workflow. And when I'm done with my InDesign document, again, I can click the plus button and I can give the file a name. I'm going to call it InDesign test. And again, I can add a comment, and when I click send, it's going to take this INDD file and upload the INDD file directly into Merlin, and it's also going to, in this case, add it directly to this collection because I had the collection open on my screen. So that's what we're doing with InDesign and Photoshop right now. I expect we'll be doing this with Illustrator shortly, and there will be other improvements coming down the road. So let's see, someone's asking me, is the Merlin plugin available right now? It should be available within a few weeks, Liz. So it's done, and it's just going through the final QA. So and there you can see that I've hidden it on my screen. There it is. There's my InDesign document, okay? And so if I were to go to Merlin and go to my collections, so let's do that real quickly. So I'm going to log into Merlin really fast. And I'm going to log in. And if I go to my collections, so I'm going to scroll down to my Adobe demo, and you can see it's got 5 items in it. And so it's got the InDesign document we just uploaded. It also has the yellow orchid that we uploaded, and it's version 2. Okay, and if I go use my versioning tool, I'll be able to open both versions of that, and you'll see the original version where the yellow orchids and then the black and white version. Okay, so that's all pretty cool and pretty nifty. Okay, so I've got some more questions. How much is the annual fee? The great question, and I'll leave that to Randy because a lot of it depends upon what you're already paying for with Merlin, and so I'll let you have that conversation with Randy. And it's unlimited seats, so we don't care. We don't charge for it based upon number of seats. We know some other dam vendors do that. We don't care if it's on one computer or 50 computers. It really doesn't matter. Can you use the plugin to upload pictures directly from Photoshop? Yes, you can. So if you're working in Photoshop with a brand new image and you launch the plugin and click plus, it's going to upload the picture to Merlin. That's not the most efficient way to do it, but clearly you could do that. Let's see. Any other questions for me? Okay. So once again, we've managed to keep it to even half the allotted time. And so I'm going to give you back, oh, hang on, more questions. Is the integration with Bridge planned? That's a really good question, Jackie, and maybe we should talk about that because the way Bridge works, it kind of browses an existing folder of content, and so I'm not sure that the integration with Bridge would be appropriate, but we should talk about that and see how it would work. Can you go over versioning? Yeah, and just regular or ordinary versioning. Oh, sure. So inside it, so having nothing to do with the plugin. So let's say we've got this particular item here, or it could be any item in Merlin, but let's say it's this one. What I'm going to do is I'm going to check it out. And as long and notice my versioning icon has turned red in the upper right hand corner, and it's letting me know that it's been checked out by me. If I hover over it, you can see it's been checked out by me, and it's on version 2, but it's a working copy because it's checked out. Okay, and so now if I wanted to, what I would typically do is I would probably download this picture, and so I'm going to go ahead and download this picture. It's going to open up in Photoshop. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is let's do something interesting to this. So why don't we crop it? Okay, and so let's make it a square crop. So I'm just going to do a 1-to-1 crop on it. So here's my square crop, and I'm going to drag my crop box. So let's say this is what we want on our crop. Okay, so I'm cropping the photo, and now I'm going to save the photo, and I'm going to save it to my desktop so I can find it. So I'm calling it. I could rename it if I wanted to, but I'm just going to save it to my desktop. Okay, and now I'm going to, and since I'm in Photoshop, I could have checked it back in from here, I believe, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my normal versioning tool. So I'm going to go back to Merlin, and I'm going to say I'd like to check this item back in. So I'm going to choose check in, and I'm going to say I'd like to replace the file with a new file. So I can either drag and drop to this area. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. Hang on. I need to go out and get it first, so let's do that. So I'm going to choose my yellow orchid, hit choose, and now I'm going to check it back in. And what it's going to do is it's going to update this, and you'll see eventually it'll be replaced with the square version. You can see it thinks it's checked back in. It's telling me it's version 3. It's not quite done yet. It's still doing some work in the background, okay? And so if I do a search for orchid, a fresh search for orchid, we'll see if it's done. And see, it's not quite there yet, okay, because it says it's version 3. But if I go to my versioning tool and say open all versions, oh, I guess I didn't crop it properly. But you can see what we were able to do here. So here's version 1, version 2, and version 3. And I think I know what I did. I think I uploaded the wrong thing. But that's pretty much how you go over ordinary versioning. So we can compare it to how it will work with the plugin. Oh, sure, no worries. This is obviously a few more steps. The plugin's a little bit more convenient. You may have designers that really aren't that interested in using Merlin, and you could basically set it up and tell them, hey, everything that you're interested in working on, I'm going to add into a collection. So for example, this thing called best Ferrari photos, if you're or best sports photos. And so you can say, I'm just going to put everything that I want you to work on for this project in that collection. And when they go to use the plugin, they would have the ability to go straight away to that plugin and select it. Oh, it's cranky because I'm trying to put a crop on it, and I didn't finish my crop. So I'd be able to go just straight here to my collection. I'd be able to go to my shared collections, and here are my best Ferrari photos, and there are 4 items in it. Okay. So does that make sense to everybody? So anyone who has access to our Merlin system could download the plugin. Yes, if they're invited to do that. So just the way, so it's a little bit tied to having Adobe Creative Suite. Okay, and you have to actually be invited to it. So if you sent us the email addresses of all the people at your organization that needed to use the plugin, we would invite them to it, and that way they would download the plugin using the Adobe Creative Suite tool, just like I've done here. And you can see I've installed the add-on Merlin X extension. So this is actually all handled within Adobe. And so we would need a valid email address in order to have 1 or 10 or 20 people. What versions of Creative Suite would you work with? Well, clearly it needs to be something fairly new. I keep mine up to date, so I'm running Creative Suite 2017, but I've also seen it work with 2016. It's actually Creative Cloud. I should be very specific about that. It's Creative Cloud. Okay, any other questions for me? Well, In that case, we'll call it a day. If you do have questions, please feel free to send them my way or send them to Randy. And thank you for your time, and I look forward to talking to you again. Have a good day, everybody.